Hi guys, welcome back to my channel Reset Diaries, and I got great response on my food and its soft power video. So many of you asked me about my health. I'm all good, thank you very much. I'll straight away jump to the point. So today I'm here to talk about Hermes. I don't need to tell you what is Hermes. If you don't know, you can skip it actually. So why I'm talking about Hermes is because I heard this fantastic podcast which was 4 hours long. It's called Acquired, and in this podcast, basically, they dissect a lot of these big companies, starting from its origins to how they have evolved and how they are running and operating right now. So it's quite an interesting one if you like to know about companies like Microsoft, Nvidia, Starbucks. They cover a whole range of companies, and so I quite often listen to this podcast. So, but this Hermes episode was, I think, one of their longest, and I was like, wow, this must be containing tons of information because they are very well researched on the subject. So today I'm going to talk not 4 hours, so I compressed this episode in whatever I found interesting, which I didn't know earlier. I'm going to speak those facts. So let's begin. Hermes, it was founded in the year 1821 when the world was in turmoil, and it was born from the vision of an orphan who went on to create one of the most luxurious brands in the world. And another interesting thing about the year 1821 was that the same year, founder of LVMH was also born. In fact, they discuss it in the podcast that who knew that in this year, two pioneers of fashion world are, taking birth, and they will just revolutionize fashion. And even after 200 years, they still stand, these fashion houses still stand so tall. So that's the beginning. And let's talk about their handcrafted excellence. And even today, in this modern world of factories, 85% of Hermes products are still handcrafted. So they are truly dedicated to their traditional craftsmanship model. Other thing was the influence from Henry Ford. So Mr. Thierry Hermes, he visited US and he saw Henry Ford and he saw his assembly lines and incorporated some of those elements of Ford's manufacturing efficiency into its own production. And in fact, up until that time, the zipper, as we know today, was used for its industrial application, like for car seats and all of that. So Hermes introduced zipper into the fashion world, and they created the world's first zipper jacket for the British Duke of Windsor. And for years in France, the zipper was called as Hermes fastener. Now let's talk about their iconic orange box. So earlier, their packaging was in the cream colored boxes, and Hermes signature orange color is not even there in the Pantone color guide. So they have exclusive right to this orange that they use. So due to the material shortages during the World War II, Hermes adopted this orange color, which has now become an iconic color. Hermes refers to its different business divisions as métiers or crafts. There are currently 16 métiers, each representing a unique craft or trade, including leather goods, jewelry, and textiles. Now, they have a very unique product identification code. Every Hermes product is stamped with a unique blind stamp which identifies the craftsperson who created it, the year it was created, and some other production details which helps them to identify that who was the person who actually made it. In fact, they create these full circle moments that some of the Hermes crafts people have experienced this moments that they actually get to repair a product which they had originally created. So it really brings like that lifelong relationship between Hermes and their artisans. Speaking of repairs, they have about 15 dedicated repair shops around the world, and they repair some 120,000 pieces annually. Next thing is about the evolution of products. Now, this was very interesting. So, earlier when they were formed, their silk scarves made 55% of Hermes's sales, while leather was just 9%. And today, the wheels have turned. Today, leather represents 43% of their sales. So, which just shows significant shift over the years, uh, how leather and silk have interchanged. themselves about the family legacy. So there are about 80 family members who are involved in Hermes and maintaining the brand's strong family tradition. So this is the sixth generation of Hermes clan who is taking care of the business. Although not every member is actively involved in day-to-day operations, but they are fairly under the family control, which has helped them preserve its values. Now, Hermes is still very deeply rooted in France, with 76% of their production still taking place in France. However, 85% of their sales comes from outside of the France. So this was quite cool. Although I believe when they would have started, it was 100% France, but now France only represent 9% of their sales, which we'll talk about. Hermes has this focus on controlled growth. So Hermes really limits the size of its workshops to about 250 to 300 artisans, because their belief is anything more than that, it becomes a factory. So they want to really keep it as a workshop, keep it as a close knit, high quality production environment, so that everybody knows everybody by their names. Next, about the training of their artisans. So this I found very fascinating, that Hermes has really integrated in full supply chain of this luxury production, that they actually have built schools and training centers in rural areas with high unemployment in France, and they ensure that the artisans have 100% graduation rate, and they receive all hands-on training and valuable skills. Although they are free to not work for Hermes, but you can imagine that who would not like to work for it. And another interesting shift, there's also a reverse in terms of their workforce. Their workforce back in the days comprised largely of men, but now the average age of Hermes artisan is 30 years old, and 80% of them are women, which is quite interesting. Now let's talk about the marketing. Hermes really believes in minimal marketing. They spend only about 4.5% of its revenue on marketing, which is in stark contrast with other luxury brands who spend heavily on celebrity endorsements. Don't use any celebrity endorsements, because their idea is they want to maintain full control over their brand image. Celebrity can do something, which is off the grid, and they don't want to be spokesperson, or they don't want that celebrity to be associated with their brand ethos. So they strictly don't have any celebrity endorsement as a policy. Another interesting thing is they have this special division which is called Hermes Horizons. Now, this division is for like some very unique needs. It's for offering luxury services. So, for example, if somebody says, "Hey, I want my jet interiors with Hermes seats and leather finishes," so that's kind of to serve this elite clientele and do this kind of services for them. Now, let's talk about their famous Kelly and Birkin bags rarity. So around 120,000 Kelly and Birkin bags are produced in 1 year, and it contributes to about 30% of company's total revenue, despite it being nearly impossible to buy. You will not even see it on their websites. You will not even see it in their stores. Now, this is totally magical. Then Hermes launched their beauty line in the year 2020 with luxury lipstick and perfumes, so which kind of made them expand into beauty segment. Now, Hermes has a very strict policy of not hiring consultant, which is kind of rare in modern business strategy. They really want to have full control over their decisions, over their values. Next, let's talk about Asia's luxury appetite. So today, 48%, you can say roughly half of Hermes business comes from Asia, which is kind of amazing. And another interesting fact is about the Chinese customer, that 80% of Chinese customers are under the age of 40. Now let's talk about their margins. Hermes boasts of 71% gross margin and 44% operating margin, which is quite comparable to high-tech companies. And despite its success, Hermes doesn't really invest in, any kind of expansion or R&D. And the way it is designed is that the craftsman processes limits the growth speed of this company. They want to keep it that way. Another interesting fact that I found is that the LVMH owner, Mr. Bernard Arnault, owns about 20% stake in Hermes. He's a very smart guy, and he has been systematically investing in this French jewel over the years, which makes his stake 20% in Hermes, apart from his own big LVMH house. And lastly, each Hermes store is curated very specifically for its local clientele, which means it's not for the company to decide what goes in the store. Rather, it's for the store managers to decide what goes in the stores, and they put forth the request that this is what we want in our store. The idea is that store manager is responsible for catering to the community's needs, so there's a lot of control in their hands to decide that what they want to stock in their stores. And yeah, that's about it. I hope you liked it. I tried to cover as many points. I will see if there's something interesting which I skipped. I might do another short episode or maybe a reel on it. And until then, if you like this video, let me know in comments, and please do not forget to subscribe to my channel, and take care. Bye bye.